I always tell my clients and individuals I work with that you have to take yourself with you wherever you go. So I want you to take the time to think, is there something that you're running from? The thoughts that come up late at night, the one thing that you would die if anybody found out, maybe some of your journal entries. On today's show, we have lots of brave individuals who are open to sharing their personal stories of emotional wounds that have impacted not just them, but their families. As you're watching, I want you to think about something. Are you ready and willing?
It's not until you experience that trauma that you understand that trauma.
13 years ago, therapist Dr. Bettye Ford was expecting her first child and kept a journal. She wrote about her thoughts and concerns. She was worried about the fibroids in her uterus and asked her doctor about them.
Should I be concerned? And the doctor told me, no, don't worry about it. Not a big deal. Everything will be fine.
She had just put together a wooden crib when she felt pain around 23 weeks. She went to the ER at the former Daniel Freeman Hospital in Inglewood. She says the doctor gave her a urine test, but never checked the baby. The next day, she was back at the hospital, this time Centinela Hospital, in preterm labor. Her daughter Callie was born and passed away just hours later.
So much attention is being brought to Black women in pregnancy and the discrimination and just all of the issues that put the mom at risk and the child at risk. So I appreciate you coming to share your story. But before we talk more about that, I'm just curious as to when you were younger, you know, what was your thoughts about motherhood? What did you envision your first pregnancy being like?
I thought I would have either a baseball team of kids and it would be really easy and pregnancy would be simple, and I would just say I was ready to have a kid when I was old enough and it would happen.
That's what they tell us, right? You wait until you're this age, you do it this way, you have kids, and we don't really talk about across the board just some of the complications.
Right.
But, so in planning for your pregnancy, was your first pregnancy planned?
Yes. I was working on my master's degree. I was wrapping it up. I had been married for about 5 years. We had been together for about 15. And this was just the perfect time. I was due to deliver immediately after my graduation from my master's degree.
So everything was lined up?
It was all lined up.
It was perfect. You followed the plan and
Yep.
things. So when did you have any complications, any medical complications prior to getting pregnant?
I went in for a regular pap smear and they told me that I had fibroids a couple years before that. And I asked the doctor, what is that? And they said, nothing to worry about, minor tumors, nothing cancerous, go on about your life.
Okay. So they didn't tell you need to do anything?
No. And I went back before we got pregnant. We decided this was the time. And I went in, saw the doctor. I said, hey, I want to talk about these fibroids. I anticipate being pregnant soon. And the doctor said there was nothing to worry about.
Okay. So you and him proceed?
Yes.
You know, and when you found out you were pregnant, what was that like?
It was a shock. I think initially we thought, oh, we'll have a baby and it'll be great. And of course, then, you know, it takes a little bit of time. We were scared. Are we really ready? A little bit of ambivalence, but eventually it happened and we were still surprised.
Okay. Joy over joy, surprise?
Yes, joy over joy.
So when did the complications start, or when did you start to think that there may be a concern?
I went into work one day and felt a little bit of pressure and thought maybe I should sit down. And went home that evening, kind of laid around. The next day, things just weren't feeling right. And within the next few days, I started to have contractions.
So
I didn't know I was dilating.
Oh, so that's what was happening when you
Yes.
were going. Did you call your nurse or call the doctor at any time and let them know, or it just felt kind of like
I just
normal
kind of felt
pregnancy?
exhausted until I had the pain. And then once the contractions started, I knew that something wasn't right. So I went into the emergency room. I was almost 6 months pregnant, and I walked into the emergency room complaining of pain. The doctors never checked me, never did a vaginal, never checked for contractions, never did an ultrasound. They gave me a urine analysis. The doctor came back in, told me I had a UTI, gave me a prescription, and sent me on my way.
Did you feel heard when you went in? Did you?
I didn't feel heard. I actually got to the exit and thought I should go to another ER. And then I said, well, this is a medical doctor. If this was an issue, they would have told me.
Okay. So you leave there, you go home. What next?
I picked up my prescription, went home. I was having contractions and laboring at home by myself for the rest of the evening. The next morning, I got up and went into the clinic where I had a regular OB. My OB was not in. The nurse practitioner was. She checked me, said that I was dilating, and told me to walk over to the hospital, which was about a block or two away, for them to do additional tests. They confirmed what the nurse practitioner said, gave me some other paperwork. I guess I needed a signature. They sent me another block or two back, told me to walk back over. I got the signature. They sent me to walk back to the hospital.
So this is your third trip back to the hospital.
Yes.
What are you thinking at this time?
Something's not right, but they'll catch it. It'll be okay. My body's going to do what it's supposed to.
So you were
do.
focused on you and your baby. Were you frustrated with the staff at this point, or?
By this point in the pregnancy, walking is a little bit difficult, and I'm in pain. And so I'm wondering, what's going on. But if they're telling me to walk, it must be okay.
It must be okay. You were trusting the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you go there, you walk back, they need a signature, you walk back, now what happens?
So they admit me to the ER, they give me some medication to stop the contractions, and I spent the next 7 days in the hospital. They wanted me to lay with my uterus elevated, which is kind of difficult to do because it's like laying upside down. And so I tried to do that. A couple days in, I complained about I hadn't been to the bathroom, and the nurse gave me a stool softener, which causes you to push. And so the following morning, I was completely dilated and in labor.
So you were dilated when you were walking back and forth?
Yes, the hope was to stop the contractions, to stop the dilating, and to get to 6 months. Even at 24 weeks, they can give you a shot to help for steroids to help the baby's lungs develop. And I didn't make it. I was 1 day shy.
So when they admitted you, what did they tell you was the reason?
That I was in labor early. They didn't tell me that it had anything to do with the fibroids.
Okay. And did they say this is something that happens?
No.
Just you're in labor early.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your thought at that time?
I just kept thinking that my body was going to do what it was supposed to do, that the labor would stop.
So you're hopeful?
Yes.
You are following doctor's orders to a T, you're trusting the doctors, time passed, and so they weren't able to give you the medication to stop the contractions because it was a day before the 24-week mark?
Yes.
Okay. Did they offer it?
No, they gave me the medication to stop the contractions. They weren't able to give me the steroids for the baby's lungs to develop.
Oh, okay, okay, because you were a day shy.
Yes.
What was that moment like for you when you know?
It was like being in the twilight zone. So the doctor comes in, and now all the original doctors were doctors of other ethnicities. Everyone else was of other ethnicities. I had this doctor who was African American who was overseeing my pregnancy. He knew about the fibroids, but he wasn't the original OB that told me not to worry about them. Nor was he the ER doctor who sent me home. This doctor cared. So when I saw him come into my room that morning, I was really happy to see him. I really felt like there was a connection between he and I. And you could see the look on his face, like he was sad that this was happening. And immediately when I saw him looking as though his heart was breaking, then it hit home for me that this wasn't good. And it was emergency. It was like, hurry up, get her on a gurney, hurry up, we gotta go to labor and delivery. I guess because of the pushing the night before, things just really went left.
So the night before they didn't say anything when they knew? Oh, wow.
And so then there's all this paperwork that they want you to sign. And so we go into labor and delivery. And I had this nurse who was really, really harsh. And I'm in there with my doctor and this nurse, and my mom and my husband have been called, and they tell me you have to push. And everything in me told me not to. Everything in my soul said this is not right. And eventually I start screaming and pushing, and the nurse says, you have to shut your mouth. I now know in hindsight that what she was trying to do was a traditional labor. You're not supposed to scream when you push. But in the moment, it was more of a wail. It was more of a, like, my world is coming to an end. And it felt like she didn't care. And so, of course, naturally, me being me, I told her to shut her mouth.
I'm sure.
And the baby was born. I named her Callie. I had always envisioned having a daughter and naming her Callie. And I got to hold her for a couple seconds. And they took her away to the NICU, and the doctor gave me some medicine to put me to sleep. And I woke up on another floor.
As you describe this story, what brings the tears? Like, what happens for you?
The moment of holding her was the first and last. You get one chance, one moment.
I just want to take a moment to reiterate that with the loss of a child, that it's not just the loss of that child. I'm going to encourage those of you who may have not lost and have never lost a child, and or supporting someone who's lost a child, or even going through the loss of a child. I want to talk a little bit about why that grief is so heavy. And it's not just the loss of that child being here. It's the grieving of every memory, idea, thought, vision you had for that child. It's the loss of being able to walk them through their first kindergarten class. It's the loss of seeing them graduate high school. It's the loss of sharing and creating family memories with them. And so there's a valid reason for that grief to be so heavy. And it does not matter whether a person has children already or not, or whether they can continue to have children.
I don't know that I could have done anything different. It was literally just a couple seconds. You know, it's the moment that you have with your child. You anticipate having a lifetime. But it was a moment.
I think what you said is, you said in hindsight, I think that, I'll get to that. So you wake up, and what happens? You say you wake up on a different floor.
They moved me out of labor and delivery because it wasn't a happy experience. And so I'm just on another floor. I don't know what floor I'm on. And the first thing I think is, okay, so where's the baby? How's the baby? And a few minutes later, you know, of course, you ring for a nurse, and the nurse comes in, and she had just passed. She had just passed a couple minutes after I woke up. And that nurse was really nice. She told me that she was very strong and her heart was very strong. And from there, it was like you come into a certain awareness about life. most people don't understand that moment. To have an understanding of that moment, you have to live that moment. And it's not until you experience that trauma that you understand that trauma.
The United States has the highest maternal and infant mortality rate when compared to other developing countries. African American mothers are 3 to 4 times more likely to die from a preventable pregnancy-related complication. And this is African American women from all parts of life, across the income spectrum, no matter the location, 3 to 4 times more likely to die from a preventable pregnancy-related complication. In addition, the death rate of Black babies is twice that of the babies born to non-Hispanic white mothers. Was anyone with you when you woke up?
My ex-husband was there, then my husband. And I believe my stepdaughter was there.
So you woke up, the nurse comes in, she says this, and from that point on, what was it like for you?
I was angry. I was angry that life had not prepared me for this. I was angry with the doctors who told me it was okay. I was angry with the doctor who told me it was a UTI. If I had gone to that other emergency room like my gut told me to do, maybe this would be different. I was angry with my body. I was angry with everyone. And I was determined to figure out where life had failed me.
When you say where life had failed you, what did you mean by that? That's pretty heavy.
I just saw life as a much different concept. Things aren't due to you. Things aren't guaranteed. You're not born into the good life.
It's kind of like a lack of a reality that you don't have control.
Right.
Because we're kind of trained, and society trains us, you do this, you do this, you do that, and if you do all of these things and the way you're supposed to, then somehow life will be smooth.
Yes.
Things will go well.
And life was going really well. I had just gone for the conference before our Master of Arts graduation. I was pregnant. I stood up on the stage. I received my cap and gown. I was married. I was doing all of the things. I was working. I was paying my way. I was doing all the things.
Did you find yourself blaming yourself?
I blamed my body.